Ever pondered how a man could be both a visionary and a tyrant? Welcome to the bizarre history of Henry VIII. In the annals of history, few figures command as much fascination as Henry VIII. Born in the late 15th century, this English monarch was larger than life, both figuratively and literally. As the second son of Henry VII, young Henry was never expected to ascend the throne. However, destiny had other plans. In 1509, at the tender age of 17, Henry found himself crowned the King of England, following the death of his older brother Arthur. But who was this youthful king? To his subjects, Henry VIII was a beacon of charm and charisma. An intelligent, athletic, and good-looking man, he was a breath of fresh air compared to his austere father. His early years were marked by a sense of optimism and promise. A Renaissance man in every sense of the word, Henry was a keen patron of the arts, an accomplished musician, and an avid sportsman. He was also fluent in multiple languages and had a deep interest in theology and philosophy. In the beginning, his reign was a time of prosperity and relative peace. Henry was popular, his court was lively, and his subjects admired him. He was seen as a benevolent ruler, leading his kingdom with a firm but fair hand. But beneath the surface, there were signs of the turmoil to come. As the years passed, this charismatic young king would morph into a figure of controversy and contradiction. His personal life became increasingly chaotic, and his rule turned from benevolence to tyranny. The once popular king became a feared despot, his reign marked by political and religious upheaval, and a series of marriages that would earn him a place in history as the king with 6 wives. So, who was this man who began his reign with such promise only to become one of history's most notorious monarchs? Scene script. Henry VIII is as famous for his marriages as he is for his reign. But why did he marry 6 times? Let's dive into the matrimonial history of this infamous king. First up, Catherine of Aragon. A Spanish princess, Catherine was more than a wife. She was a political alliance. When her first marriage to Henry's older brother Arthur ended abruptly with Arthur's untimely death, Henry stepped in. However, after 24 years and only one surviving child, Mary, Henry decided he needed a new wife to secure a male heir. Enter Anne Boleyn, a charismatic and educated lady-in-waiting. Henry was smitten, but there was one problem: his existing marriage. This led to the English Reformation and the establishment of the Church of England. However, Anne's inability to provide a male heir and rumors of infidelity led to her execution in 1536. Just 11 days after Anne's execution, Henry married Jane Seymour, Anne's former lady-in-waiting. Jane gave Henry what he yearned for: a son, Edward. However, this joy was short-lived as Jane died shortly after childbirth. Next was Anne of Cleves. This marriage was purely political, arranged to secure an alliance with Germany. But Henry found Anne physically unattractive, and the marriage was annulled 6 months later. Catherine Howard, a cousin of Anne Boleyn, became wife number 5. Young and naive, she was accused of adultery and, like her cousin, met her end on the executioner's block. Finally, Catherine Parr, the most married queen of England, having been widowed thrice before marrying Henry. She was a nurturing figure to Henry's children and outlived Henry by a year, dying in childbirth during her 4th marriage. Each wife served a purpose: political alliance, the quest for a male heir, personal satisfaction. Some queens lost their lives in the process, others their dignity, but all were instrumental in shaping the course of English history. Henry VIII's marital history is a testament to his relentless pursuit of power and personal satisfaction. Henry VIII's reign is synonymous with the English Reformation. But how did a devoted Catholic become the head of the Church of England? At the heart of the English Reformation lies a tale of love, power, and religious conviction. Henry VIII, once a fervent Catholic, split from the Vatican and spearheaded the creation of the Church of England. A bold move indeed, but why? The catalyst for this seismic shift was Henry's desire to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. The Pope, under pressure from Catherine's powerful nephew Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, denied Henry's request. But Henry was not a man to take no for an answer. Henry's determination to marry Anne Boleyn, coupled with his frustration at the Pope's refusal, led to a monumental decision. If the Pope wouldn't grant him an annulment, he'd simply remove the Pope's authority in England. With the backing of his advisors, particularly Thomas Cromwell and Thomas Cranmer, Henry declared himself supreme head of the Church of England. The Act of Supremacy, passed in 1534, made it official. The English Reformation was in full swing. The break from Rome was not just about Henry's marital woes, it was also about power. The Catholic Church was immensely wealthy and influential. By establishing the Church of England, Henry could control religion in his realm and seize church property. It was a shrewd political move that increased his power and filled his coffers. Yet Henry never abandoned his Catholic beliefs. He refuted Martin Luther's Protestant teachings and maintained many Catholic practices in the Church of England. This created a unique blend of Catholic and Protestant elements that still characterize the Anglican Church today. The English Reformation was a complex and tumultuous period, driven by a king's personal desires and political ambitions. It caused upheaval, rebellion, and the dissolution of monasteries. But it also led to the creation of a church that has shaped the religious, political, and cultural landscape of England for almost 5 centuries. Henry VIII's religious revolution changed the course of English history forever. Henry VIII's later reign was characterized by despotism and tyranny, but what drove this transformation? As the years wore on, the once charismatic and athletic king underwent a dramatic change. Henry VIII, the monarch who was once celebrated for his chivalry and intellect, became increasingly cruel and paranoid. His rule evolved into one of absolute power, marked by a series of brutal executions and acts of tyranny. A significant shift in Henry's rule was the execution of his wives and advisors. Anne Boleyn, his second wife, and Thomas Cromwell, his chief minister, were among those who fell victim to his wrath. Both were executed on charges of treason, reflecting the king's growing mistrust and paranoia. Henry's third wife, Jane Seymour, died of natural causes, but his fourth wife, Anne of Cleves, was divorced, and his fifth wife, Catherine Howard, was beheaded for adultery. His final wife, Catherine Parr, narrowly escaped the same fate. These acts of cruelty were not limited to his wives alone. His advisors, friends, and even family members weren't safe from his suspicion and rage. Henry's increasing cruelty was also evident in his treatment of the common people. His dissolution of the monasteries led to widespread poverty and hardship. The king confiscated their wealth and land, leaving many destitute. His reign was marked by rebellion and public unrest as the people suffered under his despotic rule. But what could have caused such a drastic transformation in the king's personality? Some historians attribute it to a jousting accident in his mid-40s, which left him with a serious leg injury. This injury not only caused him immense physical pain, but may have also led to a significant mental decline. Others suggest that a sense of insecurity and lack of a male heir could have contributed to his paranoia and cruelty. Henry VIII's transformation from a charming young king to a despotic ruler remains one of history's greatest enigmas. Henry VIII's reign left an indelible mark on English history, but what is his true legacy? Let's begin with the English Church. Henry's break with the Roman Catholic Church and the establishment of the Church of England was undoubtedly one of the most significant events of his reign. This pivotal move laid the foundations of Anglicanism, shaping the religious identity of England for centuries to come. The shift in religious power also allowed the monarchy to exert greater control, intertwining the church and state in ways that still echo today. Moving on to the state, Henry's reign saw the centralization of power and the strengthening of the monarchy. His use of Parliament to sanction his religious and political decisions set a precedent for the role of Parliament in governance. These changes, combined with his innovative use of bureaucracy, modernized the English state, paving the way for the future Tudor and Stuart monarchs. In terms of society, Henry's reign brought about significant changes in land ownership. The dissolution of the monasteries led to the redistribution of vast amounts of land, creating a new class of landowners and altering the social landscape of England. This shift helped to fuel the rise of the gentry and the decline of the feudal system, setting the stage for the social and economic transformations of the following centuries. And yet, despite these monumental changes, the cultural fascination with Henry VIII often revolves around his personal life. His 6 marriages, his larger-than-life personality, and his volatile temperament continue to captivate audiences, painting a vivid picture of a man who was both a king and a human being, complete with all the complexities and contradictions that entails. Henry VIII was a man of contradictions, a ruler who shaped England with both his vision and his tyranny. His story remains a fascinating study of power, ambition, and the human condition.